Good morning. This is a call to order to the Engrossment Rules, Resolution, and Credentials Committee meeting. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Alderwoman Howard.
Present.
Alderman Ornowitz.
Here.
Alderwoman Green.
Present.
Alderman Todd.
Present.
Chairwoman Tyus.
Present.
5 present, you have 4.
Thank you. Everyone is here, so we do not need to excuse any alder people. I'd like everyone to take a minute, if you haven't had a chance, to look at the minutes, so we can approve the minutes from January 22nd, 2020, please. Okay, yeah, we got it again. Okay. I have a fan on in here.
I may have, whenever you want.
Yes.
Okay.
Because I put on like extra clothes, because oh no, I got something, I got silk under
Under
there.
that. I think it's right there.
No former alder people are allowed in this room. If you work in room 200, it's a charge to come in here. Especially if you were elected in the 90s.
Early 90s.
I know when you were October 90, is that when you came here?
November.
November, I knew it was your election in like October?
Special.
Yeah, for John Coke.
Yeah. I love him.
Everyone had a chance to go through the minutes? Okay, excuse me. I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes of January 22nd, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Alderwoman Howard.
Aye.
Alderman Ornowitz.
Aye.
Alderwoman Green.
Aye.
Alderman Todd.
Aye.
Chairwoman Tyus.
Aye.
5 aye votes.
Okay, by your vote, we've approved the minutes of January 15th, 2020. Okay, our next order of business is engrossment of board bills. The first board bill we have is Board Bill 141, introduced by Alderman Boyd. It's a board and E&A making a supplemental appropriation to the budget to the sum of $250,000 and containing an emergency clause. Thank you. Is this one here? Thank you. Okay. I do see on page 3 of the fiscal note, it does not say if it's been verified by the city budget division. So we need that. I mean, we can still pass it out here, page 3 of fiscal note. Here.
Okay.
We need to hear it from the budget division. Is this the right one? Maybe I'm looking at the wrong one.
No, I think this is the right one. I guess. On page 2, I think the final bullet point also needs to be filled out. Operating equipment and maintenance costs.
Yes,
Well, I think also, does it have any fiscal income impact on any, I don't know, I can't imagine that 250,000 wouldn't have
Wait a minute,
some-
let's see, let's do one at a time. What page were you on, Alderwoman Green?
Page 2,
Two,
above
both of
that.
us are on two.
Yeah.
Okay, and so you're the one that it hasn't been filled out about the construction of any new physical?
No.
Oh, okay,
Maintenance and-
At the bottom.
okay, yes, both of those need to be completed.
I'm sorry, you said this one also?
See where I got it circled? That's why I do big.
Now, wait a minute, now, did you do one? Because it doesn't require any facilities, it's the
No.
estimated to have a direct
But it-
fiscal impact on the.
No, I thought that was the one you were asking about.
That's what I'm asking about.
Right, yeah, but it
This one.
says no.
The second one.
Yeah, I
think,
know, but
is
what I'm saying
Carol was
is-
asking about.
I can't believe that it wouldn't, because it's gonna involve having more towing available.
Well, but I think that,
Carol's asking about.
no,
that
she's,
one.
now,
Bullet
wait a
point
minute,
two.
wait a minute. Wait, let her do it, okay. You're talking about bullet point 2
Mhm.
or 1?
2,
Okay. And it says no, in any city, so that has to be wrong,
I think,
because we're giving them more money, so
yeah,
that's,
I mean, and they're gonna buy
exactly.
2 tow trucks, so I think
Exactly.
it would have some impact.
So that is not this one, I'm sorry. So this one is just plainly wrong. So somebody's going through just checking no, no, no.
And I think that operating the equipment, the maintenance, if there's any additional, they, it seems like there should be some.
Alderwoman Green just pointed that
Yeah,
out,
I know,
right. So these are both wrong.
or need some explanation as to why they're
And when
not.
it's blank, it's wrong,
Yeah.
clearly wrong. When it says, the first thing it says is that we're gonna give them some more money.
Right.
So then they need to tell us what they're gonna do with it. Okay. Then on page 3, nobody from,
If they explain those two, I think they would have to have more in this table.
okay, my question.
I mean, if they're towing more cars.
Do you all
They would
actually
have
have a
more
Board
revenue.
Bill 141? I have ordinance 70963, but not the Board Bill 141.
It's on the very, it's very short, right on the
Yeah, it's
back
on the
page.
back.
Back pa- okay.
Back
Description,
page
yeah.
of the first page.
That's all, okay. Oh, okay. I'm like, whoa, okay. It's on the back of the first page of the explanation. Okay, you guys are doing a good job saving, paper. Do you know which committee this came out of?
I can find that right quick.
Okay, because I'm gonna start sending a note to the chairs saying that
This is
I
one.
think it might come out of streets, or maybe, no, maybe.
could've been Ways and Means. I wanna start knowing where these bills come from, okay? So I can send the chairs a note saying, excuse me? And it says right here to purchase 2 tow trucks. It was Ways and Means. Okay, send a note to Ways and Means. Check your fiscal notes better. So, we need answers to this. I don't wanna try to hold the bill for no reason. But what I wanna do, if it's all right with the committee, is tell them that they need to give us answers before Friday, like tomorrow. And then we'll email them to everybody, and if they don't do it, then I will not, we can engross today, but I will not enroll it if it's not provided, if that's all right with the,
I mean, it talks about on page of the bill, page what?
No, that's the extra
page
bill.
9. Yeah,
Mhm.
it talks about the parking division funds, but it doesn't, it doesn't really say that.
But that part has already been passed, so we
But I
can't
mean,
do,
it doesn't
right,
give us any information to shed light on what we're looking for either, so.
right. But the only thing that gives us light, if you look at the board bill itself, if you look at line 14, it says it's gonna use the money, it says it's gonna go into 13 and 14,
Right, from the
auto
parking
towing,
meter.
right, and purchase 2 tow trucks.
Right. It just seems to me if you're gonna be towing more cars, you get more revenue.
And more irritated people. Start looking for more calls from your constituents.
If they wouldn't park them with no plates and flat tires and.
Okay. Alderman, you don't have to go through unless you just want to. Any part of the extra bill that's on there is the bill that we're amending. So ordinance 70963, we're amending that with with this ordinance, with this board bill right here that's on the second page, right here. So whenever we amend the ordinance, we have it attached so that if there's something that we want to question about that ordinance, we can look at it. But we can't change it or do anything because it's already been passed, okay? So we don't really have to go through it and look for mistakes. Because if it's a mistake, it's passed with the mistake in it. So only thing we're looking at is page 1 and then the fiscal note. You have any questions? Okay, if everybody's had a chance to go through Board Bill 141, I'd entertain a motion to pass out with a do pass recommendation with the caveat that they have to correct their fiscal note and have it to us by tomorrow with some kind of a report from somebody in City Budget Division that they've reviewed it. And then we want that emailed to the members before 5 o'clock tomorrow. If they do not do it, I will not enroll the bill on Friday.
So moved.
Second.
Previous roll.
There's been a motion, a second. Any objection to previous roll? Hearing none, Board Bill 141 is passed out with a due pass recommendation. Good condition. I'll call the sponsor also. Okay, the next one we have before us is Board Bill 186, introduced by Alderwoman Shameen Clark-Hubbard. It's an ordinance authorizing and directing the fire commissioner to enter into and execute a grant agreement with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Federal Emergency Management Agency through the Missouri Department of Homeland Security for the purpose of funding to support the Cybersecurity Coordinator position at the St. Louis Fusion Center and to expand funds by entering into a contract or otherwise for grant purpose and containing an emergency clause. Okay, first thing I want to ask anybody on this committee, do you know what the Fusion Center is? Because I do not.
I was just thinking the same.
Well, I just The thought was there, and I said, well, maybe I'm the only one. Oh,
Now,
that
see, you're the youngest person on this committee,
I
Megan,
know.
so we're looking to you.
I don't know what it is either, so.
We're okay, maybe if we read, I wanna take a minute to read through this one, cause I'm gonna educate myself. I don't know what the Fusion Center
East
is.
West Gateway seems to be the lead on this, but I don't know. Is anybody here from there?
Here's the chair from, Public Safety. You got a minute, Mr. Chairman? Have a seat, please. Thank you. We're doing the Board Bill 186, which is sponsored by Alderwoman Shameen Clark-Hubbard.
Yes.
And she's carrying, she's for a grant.
Yeah.
But one of the things it talks about is a Fusion Center. It says the grant is funding to support the Cybersecurity Coordinating position at the St. Louis Fusion Center. None of us know what the Fusion Center is, and we were hoping that since the youngest person on this committee doesn't know, that maybe you would know as the chair of public safety.
And you know, what I believe, didn't they come in and talk to us at the meeting, they had the chart?
I'm not on it, maybe.
I may
I
have
wasn't
to
there.
ask Greg, because he paid
It's
better.
in St. Louis County.
Wait. He can ask you, I can acknowledge you,
Okay,
okay?
can I please?
Okay,
can I bring
Greg,
him
if you
up
want,
here
if
as
you have
my-
some answers, if you would sit down there and say who you are, please.
He's gonna know more than me. I mean, I know it was a good thing.
You don't know either,
but
okay,
I know
Alderman.
it was a good-
Just be like us big
Greg,
kids,
Greg,
just say you
Greg.
don't know.
Greg will know the answers.
So
Say who you are, please.
My name is Greg Meyer.
Okay, and you have some information about the Fusion Center?
It's located in St. Louis County. You've got police, fire, and other agencies that can then, in like emergencies, they can function. And my understanding is that this then provides grant money that helps them to continue their operation.
And so it is a combination of city and county,
Yes.
okay? And it's called the Fusion Center because, do you know?
You're fusing all these groups together so that in emergencies, they can all communicate and coordinate.
Would it be Jefferson County also? Is it just the city
I
and the
think
county?
it's just St. Louis City and County.
Okay,
And there must be a spot, because I got something from Christine Gracias asking to sit on that. So apparently, we're supposed to appoint one
a
person to sit on
public
there.
safety person.
Right, but don't necessarily have to be out of public safety.
No, but the chair of public safety probably gets the point.
Yeah, we get to appoint somebody that, so obviously ask the committee first, and if not, then I think, you know, I have no problem with Christine Gracias doing it. She sent an email this morning with a sit on it. But the committee members would have first option.
Okay.
Does any of the committee, wait, don't move. Alderwoman Howard, do you have any questions?
I do, because I mean, the description says here, an ordinance authorizing the directing of the fire commissioner on behalf of the mayor and city of St. Louis to enter and execute into a grant agreement with U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Federal Emergency Management Agency through the Missouri Department of Homeland Security, funding to support the Cybersecurity Coordinator position.
And it,
So they're funding a
That'll fit.
position, a
Right.
job.
Right.
for, on there, so you're right, and the chief came in and talked about it. So they're appointing, what are they appointing, I can't remember. But this actually gave grant money to the fire department to appoint, it gave grant money to them, so the fire department was able to put a firefighter on the commission or whatever that is.
But this is gonna be administered by East West Gateway.
Okay.
Doesn't say anything about the fire department other than.
Well, they did. They
submitted the
appointed-
bill.
I can get hold of Chief Jenkerson and get you the answer
I
perfect.
I mean, I'm just
They
saying.
appointed, I know the guy they appointed, I just can't think of his name. So they actually gave somebody that position now. And,
I mean, this seems very important.
it was a good thing, and the chief came and talked on it. And I can text the chief and tell you who they appointed, but they appointed one of the firefighters to now have that position. It's a 1-year thing.
Was it Garen Mosby?
Wait.
No, it wasn't
wait.
wasn't Mosby.
Alderwoman.
Okay, that's all I
No,
have.
I,
I just thought we should.
No, it was
know
one of
more
the
about
higher
it
ups
because-
that they.
Wait.
Not necessarily to hold up the bill, but
You're
just
not,
general
no,
knowledge.
we get to ask about
But
anything.
yeah, I just think we should, additionally,
Right.
I think we should have known a little more about this, but I'm okay with it. I think it's important enough that we need to get it going.
Okay, Alderman Arnowitz?
I was just wondering maybe if it was probably like Darren Mosby, because he's the spokesman for the fire department on a lot of things.
He's got some
Get-
show
get-
now.
No, he's one of the battalion chiefs. I think he was the one who was,
Larry Conley.
that was
maybe?
acting as chief. He wasn't he acting, he was acting as temporary chief for a while. And I'm sorry, Mike, because my brain gets scattered. I'll text the chief.
You
again.
weren't expecting to testify, I
Well,
appreciate you taking the time.
No, and I'll ask him, because I know the guy, that's the best part.
I understand, that's always.
And he's one of the battalion chiefs,
Bless
and,
you.
and he'll be on it. And I do believe, like I said, Christine Engross is asking, but they'll actually, the fire department. So this guy will be over Homeland Security and, with all the stuff, the stadiums and all the stuff, bombs and whatnot.
Right.
I'm gonna text him just
Any more
because for
questions,
my
Alderman
own,
Arnowitz?
No,
for
ma'am.
my own.
Thank you.
Alderman Green?
No questions.
Alderman Todd?
No, no question.
Okay, so what I think is that the East-West Gateway Coordinating Council might be administering it because it's a
Right.
joint effort between the city and the county. And I think that that's what they run a lot of stuff through because it's already set up to run several things that way. So I think that's part of what's going on. It's a regional kind of thing. They can do it even if we add Illinois later or some other counties.
I'm gonna call, just because now it's bothering me.
Okay, good. All right.
I'll have an answer shortly, and I apologize. I don't know.
We just didn't know what the Fusion Center, you can, if you don't have any more, do you have anything else to tell us? We appreciate it.
I'm just, so
I understand, Alderman.
I own,
You wanna know now, cause you wanna know,
yeah, because I'm just, no,
okay?
Piqued your curiosity.
yeah, thank you, 'cause,
Okay, that's a good way to say it. Okay, anybody else have any questions? Okay, if we don't have any further questions about this, we did at least find out what the Fusion Center was and who it was, the grant was gonna be administered by. So I'd entertain a motion to pass out Board Bill 186 with a due pass recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
Previous row.
We have a motion, a second, call for previous roll. We had previous rolls from both Arnowitz and Todd, so. And if there's no objection to previous roll, Board Bill 186 is passed out with a due pass recommendation. Okay. So the next board bill we have is 187. It's a board bill introduced by Alderman Larry Arnowitz and Jesse Todd. I don't think we want to pass this board bill. We got too many people on the committee. Okay, anyway, so it is a board bill authorizing the Director of the Department of Health and Human Service to accept a grant award from the St. Louis Community Foundation in the amount of $26,000 for the current fiscal year, and to expend these funds for the City of St. Louis matter, appropriating such funds and authorizing the Director of Department of Human Services upon approval of the Board of Estimate and Apportionment to expend such funds as permitted by the grant award and containing an emergency clause. So my first question, Alderman Arnowitz, is tell me about what matter is.
It's basically a program that they're putting together for this year with this grant money to be able to send people out and help lower income people in city of St. Louis. To get them to fill out the census so we can get a better account of people. And so this grant will help do that. Because, a lot of people just don't, nowadays won't answer the door if somebody knocks, but you can't blame them. But, they'll have IDs on them and then know ahead of time and try to get them to fill the census paper out.
Right. It's a great program. It's very important that we get people out
Yes.
and that we fill out that census and
And
to
we
be
get
able
a
to.
better
Right.
account of who's
Right.
here.
And that helps the low income people have a little
Yes.
extra income also, isn't
Yes.
that right?
Yes.
Right, okay. I'm also a sponsor on this, so we really have too many people on this committee. I think this is great.
I will give you guys an answer whenever I get one, because now I'm bugged by it, but.
You can go, I mean, you can let us know.
I got nowhere to be till 11 o'clock. I was,
Thanks for helping us.
no, well, thank you, Greg. But after you start talking about what it was, yeah, it funded that one position.
Thank you.
I can't think who the acting fire chief was.
It'll come to you and you can tell us later. See, when
I'll
you're
be
not
driving-
thinking about it, when
I'll
you're
be
thinking
driving down
like
the
this.
road and I'll be going, oh yeah, that's right.
We all done that.
I have a call, I got a call with the chief, I'm just curious now. It's a mental thing.
It's a 60s thing, when you turn 60.
I did. I don't know, good for this one, I don't know what I did.
Everyone had time to go through? Okay. If everyone's had time to go through Board Bill 187, you don't have any problems, I entertain a motion to pass Board Bill 187 out with a do pass recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
Previous row.
Go ahead.
I said something new at first, I didn't wanna be,
No.
I was trying to wait till
No,
somebody
we're teaching you, you do
Okay,
it.
then I didn't wanna
Okay, we
be,
have a motion, a second, and a call for previous roll. Any objection to previous roll?
No.
Alderwoman, you have objection to previous roll?
Oh, I have no objection.
Okay,
No.
okay, all right, hearing no objection, Board Bill 187 is passed out with a due pass recommendation. Okay, and for the first time ever, we have a resolution. It happens to be that I'm the sponsor, so I'm gonna ask the vice chair to take, the seat here so I can present my resolution to the committee. Boy, this is high.
Thank you, Alderwoman Tice. You want to go ahead and just give us an overview of what resolution number 211 is?
Resolution two, thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Okay, Resolution 211 is a resolution opposing the state intervention of local government residency requirements for public employees. A few weeks ago, the mayor and the public safety director and the police commander, who we also know as the police chief, went to Jefferson City to lobby and testify before a committee in support of getting rid of not only our residency for police, but then it came up residency for everybody. I was appalled. I've been in politics longer than anybody who's here in this room, and in fact, there's only one person who's elected at the board, been here longer than me, and that's Joe Rody. And so never has a mayor, I don't care how we have disagreed with that mayor, gone and asked the legislature to overrule another body. We have three bodies in this city, just like they do on state and federal levels, which is the executive, the judicial, and the legislative body. The Board of Aldermen is the legislative body. And also, I was appalled because we have a charter. St. Louis was one of the first charter cities back in the 1800s. And the charter allowed for charter cities to keep the interference from Jefferson City down to a very minimum. Okay, and really you're only supposed to be involved in Jefferson City if it's something that's not a local matter. This is a local matter about where our police or any members of our who work for the city of St. Louis live. After I introduced this resolution to just show you how it's a local matter, so they changed it to, they changed their legislation down in Jefferson City to say that they wanted to cover all police in all the state. That was very interesting when they did that. the other people said, don't put your hands on our police because that's our decision. So if it's their decision in the state where their police live, it's our decision. We took a vote back in September. It did not pass out of the Board of Aldermen, saying that we would not go for a vote where the police live. Since I've been here, I think it was 3 or 4 times we did actually do non-binding votes. It was never close. The people of St. Louis speak very loudly that they do not want their police to live outside their city. I also, a year before, I used to be the chair of public employees, and I sat on the benefits committee, and I helped to write the drug testing rule, and I worked with the police about drug testing. And one of the things that I found out, and it just threw me for a loop, the police that were doing the drug testing for the city of St. Louis lived outside the city. So when we start to try to put together a rule, this is where your police affects you lives. We had to add an extra hour because they can live an hour away from the city. So the people who were doing the testing said, well, you can't make that rule because then we can't get in time. Because I wanted the testing to be on the site, which they can do now. They wanted it to be at the police station. And, we were doing some kind of innovative things because we had no really real drug testing. But we needed it because we've had police officers who now have tested for drugs and other things. And so, but we had to add an extra hour because our police, some of them are allowed to live out in the city. Back in 2012 or 11, we actually did have a initiative, and that took people going out and getting a petition, and we were able to vote, and the people voted finally that we got local control back. I want to go on record to say I did not support it. Not that I didn't support local control. I didn't think that the current mayor we had was sophisticated enough and mature enough to take over local control. And I don't think we had safety things written into it, such we don't have a police board anymore. There are certain things that we just wrote a bill, but it didn't cover a lot of things we needed to. So my ward didn't support it, but it did get passed. I do respect the legislative process and people's hard work. So since it's been passed, I've been supportive of it. And so to see an initiative that the people actually went out and got passed and then the people voted on, to have some people come and say, we're just going to override that. I wish Jefferson City would stop doing that. Many of the people in Jefferson City often talk about states' rights, but they seem to ignore we have a local right. And so for me, especially being a charter city, this was our right to decide where the police live. And especially after when they tried to change it to say statewide, that the other counties and cities said, no, you shouldn't do that. I am troubled when you think that St. Louis and Kansas City are really the only ones that don't have control of their police before anyway. And now it's only Kansas City. And that went back to the Civil War when they decided that Kansas City and St. Louis were sympathizers with the Union. And so they took that away. And it's also the place where you have big African American and minority populations. So it's like trying to control us in a way that they should not. So I was very concerned with that. I started doing research. One of the other things I found out when we took over local control, right now we're paying money to lawsuits. Well, the state used to pay up to $1 million of our lawsuits. So we had to actually pay money. We had to agree to start paying the lawsuits. We had to agree for all the obligations that the police board had committed. So we actually kind of made a contract with the state about taking the police over. And there was nothing about residency. In fact, there was something. The thing about residency that remained was that the police that were already there would be able to do 7 and out. That was already in effect, and so if you were already employed by the city of St. Louis as a police officer, you would keep your 7 and out, which you could move into the county. But starting when we took it over in 2013, then the police became civil servants, and the rest of the new people were not excused. And that was part of our agreement. So now for the state to come in, and then after they got us to detrimentally rely, because that's another contract term. When I ask you to do something and you do it, and then I try to change the agreement afterwards, in contract that's called detrimental reliance. What the state is attempting to do to me is to do a regulatory taking of our police. They don't want to pay all the bills, but they want to run how our police is, decide how our police is run. if you want to decide how our police is run, and I made this argument many years ago about the airport, because they were gonna put a lot of commissioners on our airport and make it so that the county could control our airport, but we were gonna still have to be responsible for it. My idea is that if the state really wants to decide where our police live, then they ought to pay this a couple of $100 million. That's a big budget, part of our budget. I don't want them to do that. I don't think that I should be able to say they should do that after the people have voted so many times. And I don't think that they should be able to do it after they made an agreement with us. And I most certainly do not agree with the executive branch going to another legislative branch and asking them to overrule us. And especially, we're all Democrats here in the city of St. Louis. I spoke with our contingency from the city, which are most Democrats. When they told the mayor no, she went to the Republicans, and that's who's carrying the bill. So we have Republicans carrying a bill about where our police live. I believe that is wrong. I think that is wrong thinking on all kinds. The mayor said something about a quid pro quo, that the reason she was doing that is because there were some alderman who was mad at her because she would not agree to she was going to veto the bill to rethink about having 28 or 14 aldermen. That is not what quid quo pro is about. It is about getting something for yourself. What this was about an agreement to say, hey, if we'll put both of them back out and see. We'll put the police residency back out to sea, and we'll put the 28 wards, 14 back out, and the public can make a decision. There was nobody getting anything personal. We make these kind of agreements all the time. It is nothing wrong with it. It's something the mayor should learn how to do. I wouldn't have liked it, but I would have gone along with it, but it was something that she could have done. She also could get out, if she thinks that she wants a vote on the police residency, put your people out there and get the signatures. But she already knows what the answer is going to be by looking at past votes. So to go around and try to lift up our residency is wrong. And to ask the legislative body to overrule the Board of Aldermen is wrong for many reasons that I've stated before. And therefore, I wrote up this resolution and asked for co-sponsors. And I do want to say that on page 2 of the resolution, the last paragraph, these 1, 2, 3, 4, from the last sentence, section 84.344, friendly amendment, it should be another 4 at the end there. So that's what my resolution is concerning.
Okay. Go around and ask for questions. Alderwoman Howard, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. So you're against having the police live outside the city of St. Louis?
I am.
Do you realize that the police have been, before the city took it over, they were allowed to move outside the city?
And they still are for the people that were employed. I just said
Right,
that.
right.
Yeah, right, but
Okay.
there's
How
some
long-
real concern about if that's legal, but we agreed to that, so I'll go along with that.
How long has the residency requirement been part of the city charter?
The residency,
How long has it been part of the city charter?
I don't know how long it's been.
1976.
Okay,
So it's a relatively newer, I guess,
Well,
20th century, yeah. So as a police family, I grew up in the city.
okay,
It was accepted that as an officer of the law, you would live in the city. We had the opportunity to move out. I grew up well before 1976. And we had the opportunity to move out. And I mean, I understand that people should have the opportunity to live where they will. I would prefer that my police officers live in the city. As a matter of fact, I have one who lives across the street from me. I don't think he's going anywhere fast. There are people that are just city residents, but I think that if we're trying to recruit, and this goes across the board, not just police officers. I mean, we focus on law enforcement, but I think we need to look at the employment of all city services. I get tired of telling people that we're hiring a contractor to come in and cut trees because we can't hire enough tree trimmers. I get tired of telling people we can't deliver services because we don't have enough employees. Now, I understand, I don't know what we do to recruit those. I know we have a pay deficit. We can't pay people enough. So if we continue on the path we're on, we're going to continue to deliver less services for more taxes. So I guess my question is, Since this wasn't in force until 1976, what did the city do before we had a residency requirement?
I can't go
I
back to
think
that.
historically, we should look at that.
I don't. I graduated from high school in 1974. I was in college in 1976. So I will tell my age. I'll be 64 April 29th. So I do not think that we have to go back. Things change. The Constitution, charters, everything, they're not in stone. They change. You have amendments and things like that. That's why we have a vote. I want to address some of the things that you
Well, I have one more question, and I guess, you know, the Board of Aldermen not putting this out to the constituency, to me, is where we failed. So it should have went out to the voters, because I don't think that we hold, you know, the charter change is up to the voters. And 2 times it was on the agenda and didn't get passed, so I just want to be clear about that.
But can
Excuse me.
Wait, no,
I'm sorry.
no.
Okay,
It'll
that's all
be-
I have.
It'll be your turn in a minute.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
That's all I have.
Please, always correct me because I'm new. I don't have a year in yet, so y'all can help me out.
It's all right, we're gonna go to Alderman.
Can I
Otterman.
answer?
Oh, yes,
Okay.
answer.
Okay.
Well,
So let's
Oh,
go.
my
Let's go
goodness,
with
I'm
some
way off.
things that are not true.
Madam
You know, I was
Chairman,
the chair of public employees. Okay, this big raise that the mayor. I don't take credit for stuff, but pretty easily I can show you that this why she's putting this out is because I instigated while I was the chair of public employees, not only getting the water workers raise, but also having the public Richard Franks to do a whole study about the entire city. That came from me because I do care about workers' rights.
I do too.
Right, okay. So this thing about not having enough people to cut trees, that's wrong. So right now, I'm getting ready to come with a board bill. So we have what's called seasonal workers. We hire them every year. We could have just hired the seasonal workers. One of the things that's happened in politics is that when people want to tell you something doesn't work, they put out lies and then they undermine what should be happening so it doesn't happen. The first thing you would have done is hire the seasonal workers. So I've checked, so I'm coming with a board bill saying that we should hire all our seasonal workers. Most of them want to work. I also have talked to many of the aldermen who said I sent people, they wouldn't hire them. The reason why they don't want to hire them is because then you wouldn't be able to go out and put that misinformation out about we don't have anybody that could work, because that's just not true. And I know that in my time as being a chair of public employees. I want to thank you because you were the chair, you left, I got to do it, I learned everything, I ran, I read everything. I would have never been on that committee, but I learned so much. So it's just not true. I sent people myself who applied for the permanent positions. They would not hire them, but they hired them for temporary and then they laid them off. But they wrote them glowing recommendations. So how you do that is you put out misinformation. I have a book that's called How to Lie with Statistics, but you have to undermine things. So we have people who could work, they just will not hire them. And the fact that you would not hire the people that we have permanent comes back every year, that speaks to you what I'm saying, because that would be the first pool of people that you would hire. So that's not true. And the reason why they like these contracts, and I know this, is because they give their friends the contracts. They get people out there and they give them contracts. Could you give me my water, please, Alderman? Please. You hand that down, please? Thank you.
Sure. Yes.
So as to the police, that's another thing. That's not true. I appreciate it, Alderman. So I get a printout every few months of everybody who works for the city of St. Louis. You all know I'm a research person. And so about 6 or 7 months ago, there was a big to-do in the paper because the mayor and the personnel director had a different number of how many police officers we were short. The reason because of that is because the personnel director told the truth and the mayor did not tell the truth. So we have people that are cadets and everything else. And when you start counting that, we don't have nearly the shortage that they say that we have. Let me also say this. Having the most police does not solve crime. There are a lot of things that you can address with crime that does not include having the most police. So I didn't come from a police family. I come from a military family. I grew up with the police. Until I came to St. Louis, I never had a negative interaction with the police. So I am one of these black people who grew up with officer friendly, because I grew up in the middle of central Illinois. I didn't believe police lied. I never found out police lied till I became a public defender and found out not only do they lie, but they commit perjury, because they did it with 3 of my first cases. So I had to readjust my thinking. As it is still, I am really still pro-police. I have never before you and anybody came here been for the police to move out the city of St. Louis. I, as an elected official, have to live not only in the city, I have to live in my ward, as we all do. We made a contract with the people that that's where we would live. Every employee who comes to work for the city of St. Louis, including the new police, not the ones that are under, because we did not undercut that, although I think that we could have if we take it to court. We left in place, if you were already employed with the city, you still could do 7 and out. But the new people came in as public employees, and it is my contention and always has been, it is better for us to have the police in the city. They're closer if you need them. People like to see people in the police. I actually have 2 policemen that live on my street. One of them had to move in during the Freeman Bosley years. He was so mad. He was irritated. He's been retired. He loves living on Maffett Place. He says, "Oh, Alderwoman, I just didn't understand." So sometimes, this thing about there are no places in the city of St. Louis that are affordable is not true. Okay, so that's not true. If you don't want to work if you don't want to live in the city, go get a job someplace else. I will also share with you, which I will show you. While I was the chair of public employees, I asked for a comparison of not just salaries, because you all do know that I sponsored the bill where they got the $6,000 raise, even though I had a lot of problems with them getting a raise and not the rest of the citizens. But I also asked for the benefits. What I will tell you, and I have it right here is that when we look at the benefits, our city police make more than the county. They put out a lot of misinformation. Earlier when I was the 20th Ward Alderwoman, they put out that they had to move from the city because if they had special need children, that those children could not get special needs. That was not true. In fact, I had a hearing. It was proven that if you have special need children, that your children, if the city cannot provide their education, we have to pay for them to go out to the county, to whichever is the best place for them to get an education. We pay for the cab or a ride or whatever. The police, since I've been here, have wanted to move out the city. And that's their right to want to. Then don't sign an agreement saying that you want to be a city policeman. I understand and respect your position, but mine has been that since 1991 when I came here. It will remain that. I'm opposed to the police moving out of the city, but more to the fact, I'm opposed to the state legislature overruling what we already did. If they do that, then I think we ought to go to the feds and have them overrule what they do. And they would tell you in a minute, they don't want that. This is a strictly local thing, and everybody has a right, so I don't need to debate about where the police should live. This legislation is, do not have the state legislature, this resolution, come in and go behind the city of St. Louis. You think we should have had a vote about that? I think we should have had a vote about 14. I was cheated off of this board. No way they would have got that out of the board going to 14 if I had been here. So I was willing to put both of them out to the citizens, not just one, or not just the one that the mayor wants. She didn't have enough votes, and she has no business going to the legislator. And if I was the mayor, I would hope somebody would be on the board of aldermen, if I was the mayor, and check me, because sometimes people want more power than they are supposed to have. And you're supposed to be able to work with equal branches. So I appreciate that you're from a police family. I'm from a military family. My sister had a baby, and from 3 days after her baby, I was going to have to raise her child because she was willing to go to war because that is what she signed. So if the police don't like what they signed, don't come be police in the city of St. Louis.
That's all. Okay. Alderman Arnowitz?
I guess a few things. I don't come from a police family. So, I was one of the aldermen that was always against city control because I knew it would cost the city anywhere from $5 to $7 million a year. Only because the state did pay the first $1 million in lawsuits. Now we've encompassed all these problems. But I think it was back in 1980 something when the state allowed the police to move out after 7 years or whatever year it was.
It was 2003.
Okay. So everybody back then thought there would be this mass exodus. And I mean, I can tell you, and I can back my facts up, I have over 144 policemen who lives in my ward, active and retired. I have 2 county policemen, and I have a sheriff from Jefferson County. I just think that sometimes, and I don't down people's opinions. If you believe police should live where they work, that's fine, but I think, you know, this thing about residency, I mean, my opinion personally, I think years ago, this was all political, because these political jobs and this, that, you lived in the ward and voted for that elected person. If this would pass, and I mean, I think the state should reimburse us, you know, for
That's in
some
here.
things. You know, I'll be honest, I worked for the city for 36 years. I ran for alderman because I cared about the city. I'm not going anywhere. My next move would be to Jefferson Barracks. But, you know, with that being said, I mean, I'm just being honest. I've been everywhere in the city of St. Louis. Look, probably 85 to 90% of people who live in the city, most of their kids are grown. They're not just going to up and leave if they're still working for the city. But you know why? They can't afford to go out and buy a new house. I can't afford to go out and buy a new house. I mean, I'm just being honest. And then you start all over. You know, so I don't know what the answer is. Maybe hindsight being 2020, you know, I think if we'd let the people voted on the bill about the residency, it probably wouldn't have passed, because there's a lot of people. So I think, you know, there we did ourselves injustice by not letting it get on the board. I have a hard time, I mean, here, I can personally, I would have bet millions of dollars that cutting the alderman from 28 to 14 wouldn't have passed. But I know it passed in 5 wards in our St. Louis. I seen the stats, it passed big in South St. Louis and wherever. So, you know, I would just have a hard time going against people's wishes, especially when 76% in my ward voted to reduce it. Now, I think they'll find out in the long run, they'll wish they didn't, because we know how hard it is to get things done nowadays compared to 25 years ago. And, you know, I just think a lot of times we just get tied up in a lot of other things. It's not our fault we can't, you know, do some sort. I mean, I turn all my calls in, then you get a call, what, and we all get it. Well, you turned it in, you said, yes, I turned it in. I mean, I can't, you know, I can't light a fire under them and tell them, you know, do this for me and that.
I'll be over with
Exactly,
with this
but,
chainsaw in a
so I don't know. You know, thinking it was just a shame. Like I said, I would have never believed that would have passed, reducing the alderman. But, and then one of the aldermen who wanted to put it back on the thing was the first, she said, well, it was up to me, I'd reduce it to 7.
I agree.
Do you remember who said that? So you know, and then, you know, you put it on the ballot in 2012. People thought this change was happening right away. You know, got the calls. When does this take effect? Is it next month, next year, or whatever? So it was it was written poorly. I think they should have explained to the people what's going to happen. And I agree with former Alderman Mr. Villa when he asked the former Alderwoman Phyllis Young. He'd like to know how many people was knocking on his door. So, you know, it's a catch-22, I guess I'm trying to say. You know, I believe that when we passed the ordinance in the city about minimum wage, and they said we can't legally do it, we do. You had senators and representatives from Jeff City. Oh no, you have to pass it. Well, they got egg on their face. They had to pass it. So we just have a poor communication going back and forth, and a lot of people in Jeff City vote the way the money goes. Let's be honest. And I'll say it publicly or to anybody. So, but you know, I agree. And I honestly don't think there would be a mass exodus, but you know, there's some, hopefully I don't know if this even fly, probably end up in court. But you know, let's offer policemen to stay in the city to take home cars like we used to have and see them in the neighborhoods. Let's offer this or let's offer that for other city employees. You know, the one thing, if people move, they're still going to be paying the 1% earnings tax because they work here. They're going to spend their money eating lunch here, unless they bring it, I guess. But you know, I just think we need to come to figure something out, you know, and making some benefits for people that stay, making some incentives is what I'm saying. And I think, you know, how we do that, I think we just need to put our heads together collectively. And so, And I think if you can make some reasonable, decent incentives, I think you would have even less, you know, so. I like the city. I love it because you can get from South St. Louis all the way to North St. Louis in 20 minutes. You know, no matter which, I like driving straight up Kings Highway all the way. So, but I always remember our friend Joanne Wayne, what she used to say.
No, she's
Lay-
talking about
lay-
Joanne Wayne.
Lay your head where you make your bread, so.
That is correct.
That's all I have to say.
Okay. I want to say, as a response, in my ward, I did not support, and I was off the board because I've been gerrymandered, and people think gerrymandered is the same as redistricting. It is not. I didn't support it. People said, well, you can get your ward back, blah, blah, blah. No, it was, reducing to 14 is not a good idea. They didn't write it well. They talk about saving money. That's not true.
Right.
It had been on the ballot before. All this stuff came from Rex Singfield, and we defeated him. It was ABC. So he just keeps coming back, and he keeps coming back. So it wasn't even about me because I wasn't on the board. I told people why it was a mistake, and it got defeated. Also, we said it was a mistake to take the local control. Not that I didn't support local control, but the way it was set up and written was not good. I like good legislation. You all know that it's about me. That was not good legislation. So we defeated both of them, and they were on the ballot at the same time. So when I tell you this is not me not wanting to work with the police. I have continuously supported the police before any of you all came here. Okay, you were when I came here, you are a sergeant of arms here. Right, and so one of the ideas about taking home the police, that came from me. The cars. And then our cars were out in the county. The whole point, for the cars were to be, so you could see them in the city. So this is what I had to learn, and I told you before, I believe that police didn't lie. I grew up, I love them, I'm still friends with police kids. Their parents were police officers. They lived right next to me. I never lived in a segregated community where I grew up. I always lived integrated. So what I had to learn, and I learned this in my mother's house, some things when you agree that you're going to do it, that's what you have to do. The police have just kept not listening. If you're going to talk about a vote, we had 3 non-binding votes, which they told the police, we want you to stay here. So why don't the police stop trying to move out the city? Why don't they just accept it? We had 2 other votes about reducing the Board of Aldermen. It didn't win. So people just keep bringing it back. So there's no problem with bringing it back again. Okay, I will not have a problem if we put both of them back on the ballot and see what people say. But that's the thing that a mayor who knows how to do politics would have done. I've served with Vince Shamo, Freeman Bosley, Clarence Harmon, Francis Slay, and now Lyda Cruz. I've served with 5 mayors and I think 6 or 7 police chiefs. You do make political deals. Everybody tries to act like that there's something wrong with it. We all come down here with a perspective. We do not all agree. Some things we agree on. But so you have to say, well, okay, this is what you think. This is what you think. The mayor could have easily done that. She did not. That's on her. But what we should all be able to agree is that she should not go to Jefferson City and say, overrule what we voted. If that's what we're going to do, we don't need to have a Board of Aldermen. We need to not have one. And she would not like it if we went to the governor and told them, well, overrule what the mayor did. And I would never think to do that. If she vetoed something, if we don't have 20 votes, then we just don't have it. We told her no. We're the checks and balance on the executive branch. So when we told her no, it was up to her to put her political cap on and be a good politician and say, how can I get this done if she really wanted to get it done? But going to Jefferson City and saying override us is not the way to do it.
And just one last thing. And on the same token, you know, our previous mayor and everybody shouldn't have went to Jeff City saying we should take control of the city police department, not thinking what it would cost us. So
You're right.
Really, they
but that was
shouldn't
where
have
he
went
had to
down
go.
there.
Not, I don't take up for
Right,
Francis,
right.
but because they had control, we had to he had to go there. So he
Right.
did the right thing. I will tell you, when they did this residency 7 and out, he raised a fit about it. And Francis and I on many things did not agree, but I agreed with him. He had a fit about them doing that, and he was one of the no votes as the mayor. So, and the people that I've served with before this, they understood about why we needed to keep the police in the city. Okay, so they never would have supported that. None of them, okay? That was not, and one of them was the police.
Thank you, Alderman.
Alderman Todd?
Let me first start off by saying that with water reduction, I was still on the Central Committee for more than 20 years. Every alderperson runs on them, and every alder person ran on a Democratic ticket. That's why you sit as alder people. First, we did not approve, we did not we didn't get notified until September of 2012. I was, Brown, I'm not gonna call names, no, because it's not fair, because they're not here to defend themselves. What happened, we voted to oppose water reduction. And the reason we voted to oppose it was because first of all, the impact it will have on the Central Committee, the impact it will have on the citizens. Secondly, some of the people had a conflict of interest, meaning that they were gonna get paid and they had spouses or some other relatives on payroll. Others from reliable sources were getting parachute, were getting jobs after if it passed, and so they worked hard to get good retirements. But even worse than that, it was sponsored by Rex Sandfield, who was a Republican. I can never, ever, ever see how someone gonna run on a Democrat ticket and then turn around and cut the Democratic Party's throat. Benedict Arnold and Judas, and this is what I say at any time, couldn't have done a worse job. And the reason I say that is because the Republicans are the only ones, and the libertarian type people, and Rex Sandfield, that's who sponsored this bill. It was started in 1957 by the Republicans. In 1983, I helped to defeat it. They tried petitions. I helped to defeat it. In 2004, I helped to defeat it. In 2012, they lied to the public and said that they were going to save money, and it's going to cost money. That's why it's wrong. It is wrong because they lied. It is wrong because they betrayed their constituents. Not one constituent came to these people and told them to cut the wars. It was Rex Sandfield and the Republican types who did it. So if you're a Democrat and you run on a Democrat ticket and then you do what the Republicans say, I say you're a traitor.
Police.
And I tell anybody. That's all I got to say. But on the last thing about residency requirement, it is racist. And the reason it is racist is because, number one, black people, starting with slavery, for 250 years would get killed if we were caught with a book, the majority of us. When I talk about black people, there were some who could read out, but I'm talking about the masses. So we would get killed. During segregation, which I was born under segregation on a plantation, there was, white kids had books. We went to school with no books, no pencil, papers, or anything material. In St. Louis, until 1954, school was segregated, and St. Louis got pass-me-down material. So what is the point? The point is, on pencil and paper, history has, your economics, first of all, give you more practice, since white people have more money because they benefited from slavery. And we didn't get our reparation, and they got our money and free labor, and took our labor. They didn't ask for it, they took it at gunpoint. The point I'm making is that tests themselves to say, take a test and then you can move out of the city because we can't find anybody, is racist, and that it's denying black people, it's giving black people pencil and paper tests when they could get on the job and see if you could do the job. Or even whites too, it would be equal. That may be whites who have learning disability, other people who, so it could be anybody. You wouldn't just say just blacks. But I'm saying pencil and paper alone should not be the criteria, but it especially has an impact on blacks due to the historical and the denial of the money to be able to buy the materials to practice with, and the historical denial of education. But it doesn't mean that blacks are no more intelligent, are not as intelligent and can't do a better job. It just means that we just have not had the materials and the to buy the material to practice, and we have not had the and I say that from a teacher's point of view, principal's point of view, and teaching in every subject, K through 12, is that study after study shows that if you have practice make perfect, we've heard that phrase. If you don't have as much material, you can't practice. Also, poverty affect, poverty. Right now, for example, we have more hungry blacks disproportionately. In St. Louis, we do, just talking about in the city. That has an impact. So what is my main point is that you got people right here, but they want to give them a pencil and paper test when the main test to be a police officer should be how well can you relate to the people in the community. But the other thing is that the police are not going to solve the problem. We don't have a police problem, we have a poverty problem. We have a racist problem. And the police department, because you have two police unions, a predominantly black and a predominantly white. That is the problem. We have racism and poverty. And talking about more police are not going to solve anything. In fact, they're part of the problem. And the reason they're part of the problem is because they have been promoting, and the police go along with it, this false idea that more police gonna reduce crime. The only way you're gonna reduce crime is to reduce poverty, and with a guaranteed annual income. And even if you compare black to black, the blacks that have more money, you don't see them killing each other like they do in the city. So it's poverty, 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 and we need a guaranteed annual income of $1,000 a month. And anything short of that is just a waste of time. And more policemen is the worst waste of time, because if law and order, we need to cut the police budget in half. We need to cut the military in half. We need to cut all of this law enforcement stuff for the last 50 years that they've been promoting the right wing. Fascists, racists have been promoting for the last 50 years that is totally caught, and that's where the money is going, and it's being taken from education, it's being taken from promoting it, taken from parks. We don't even have activities in parks. It is being taken from social programs. It is being taken from talking about $70,000 to keep a person in the workhouse when we could send them to Harvard or Yale. This is the kind of nonsense where we get to talking about the police. Why don't the police talk about that? Then we gave them almost a $6,000 raise with a tax increase, which I was one of the few who opposed it. We gave them that kind of raise. Has the crime went down? No, we got more killings. The only way we're going to stop crime is through poverty. That's all I got to say. And I'm against the police. I want them to live in the city, and if they don't like the city, go get a job somewhere else. Nobody's forcing anybody to come to work, period. If you don't like the job, if you want to move, move. Just don't work here. And there are plenty of people, and they talk about police records. The police we are over-policed by the police, so they are part of the problem. They were the same ones locking up black people for 100 to 1 for crack cocaine. The police industry, that's what I call it, was the one who they are the problem. And anybody ask me, am I anti-police under the current circumstances? Absolutely. And they're gonna ask me what happened if I call them. I'm gonna call them because I'm paying taxes. Period. Yes, I'm gonna call them because I'm paying for them, and my constituents are too. Rick Sanfield call them. Everybody, the Republicans call them. Everybody else call them. So I'm gonna call them, but I don't agree with them. And I'm never gonna agree with them until the budget is cut and they stop promoting that lie that they can reduce crime. Their only job is to lock somebody up for probable cause. That's the only function the police has, not to reduce crime. And that's all I got to say. And yes, I'm against them moving out of the city. I'm against it going on the ballot. It's been on there 3 or 4 times, but then they turn around and said ward reduction been on there. But the same people who said that were the same ones who ran on the Democratic ticket and followed the Republicans' idea from 1957, 1983, when I helped to defeat it, 2004 when I helped to defeat it again, in 2012 when the Central Committee, we put out a ballot to try to defeat it, but then they lied to their constituents, betrayed their constituents, because this is only going to help the people with money. It's not going to help black people and the average white person. It's going to help the Republicans, and it's going to help Rick Sanfield types who can pay more because the cost of election is going to double. and who's gonna pay for it? People with money and who has money, not whites and not the massive whites or blacks, but the Donald Trump types, the billionaire, the millionaire type. That's who gonna pay for it, and those people who did it, and who stood by and watched it, they are worse than Benedict Arnold and Judas. Those who took money, and I don't know who did, but anyone that cut a deal. So did Judas. So did Benedict Arnold. But I'm just saying that deal hurts the Democratic Party, it hurts the white and black, mass of white and black people. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Gonna try to wrap us up here, because I think they're trying to, they
Right.
might not have quorum over in public safety right now. So a couple of things, I wanna first just sort of center that this resolution isn't particularly about weighing in whether or not we are for or against residency. What this is about is whether we think it is appropriate for the mayor to be asking the General Assembly to take away our local control. And as somebody who worked very, very hard to get that minimum wage bill here in the city across the finish line, I can take a lot of credit for
Right.
getting that passed,
Right.
only to then have the General Assembly come and take that away from us. I think that it's extremely problematic that our mayor would be going over our heads, when I do think that many of us have given some solutions to this problem. I want to ask you just a couple of questions. The mayor announced 50 waivers for police who don't live in the city. Do you know how many of those waivers have been granted?
I don't, but it's supposed to be really easy to find out because you have to file them with our clerk.
So I have those numbers. Of the 50, only one waiver has been requested, and that one waiver was granted. So we have a process in place for folks outside the city to apply to our police department already.
I would like to say to you, I told the public safety director about the waiver, okay?
Yes.
He didn't know about it. So I brought that up as a way to if they really had that problem, if it really was the police needed to live outside the city.
Yes. Other question. Can you tell us what the Ferguson Commission report says about police being a part of our community?
It's one of the most important things that is what, and it's in my resolution. If you hear, people rely on the police. Nobody wants the police to be the enemy. You want them to be the friends, the officer friendly. You build better relationship. They talk about community policing. When you have the police in your community and they know you and you know them, then it's a much better thing in the way they react to you. When you have people who don't know anybody or are scared of a certain community, that's when you get the interaction that you got with Michael Brown and Darren Wilson. So it emphasizes that is something that we want, that's a positive thing. But for those who don't, because I've had some people say, well, Ferguson Commission, we're not Ferguson. No, we're the city of St. Louis, and we are even a bigger place that we should be showing the example for other people of what we can do. So even without the Ferguson Commission, we should be having our police in the city, and they should like to live in the city, and they should want to interact with our people and know them.
And just one last thing that I'll say, there's this issue of police recruitment isn't just an issue in the city. And, there's an article in the Post-Dispatch from September 13th that talks about how St. Louis County Police are looking at, loosening their recruiting requirements because they're having trouble filling positions. So I think from that perspective, simply lifting a residency requirement isn't necessarily going to solve this issue. I think we have a lot of problems with corruption within our police department. We have a very toxic culture in our police department. Our police department continues to make news on, a monthly basis, national news. Negative news about issues, which quite personally, I'm not sure why anybody would want to work for a department that is continually making national news for not great reasons. So I think that there's a lot of work to be done to address those real issues. And, simply going above the heads of the Board of Aldermen, taking away authority not just from us, but from voters. If the mayor really thinks that voters are on the side of this and that we're getting it wrong as a board and we're not listening to our constituents, then she could take this directly to the people. But I think a lot of us, we talk to our constituents, we know how they feel about this. I know mine would persecute me if I voted against something that if I voted against a recommendation of the Ferguson Commission. And I think a lot of us are in that place. So with that, there's one just error I want to note on here to fix. Line 2 after home rule privilege.
On what page?
First page.
Okay.
I think there needs to be a period there.
Yes. That's a friendly.
Yes,
Right.
but that's all I see. So with that,
Madam Vice Chair,
yes,
I don't want the people who are opposed not to have a chance to vote. Could we have a
Yes.
5-minute break or so to let them be able to come back over here so that they can record their vote?
yes, we can do that.
Thank you.
We are coming back from a 5-minute break, which probably was closer to 15, but we said 5. So I'm gonna go ahead and, I think kind of in summary, Resolution 211 isn't asking us to weigh in one way or another on the residency requirement. It's specifically speaking to, whether we think this is, it is appropriate for the mayor to be asking the General Assembly to take away our local control over this issue. And so with that, I will entertain a motion to pass out resolution number 211 with a do pass recommendation.
Second.
I so move.
Jesse?
Second.
Previous roll.
Yeah.
Objection. I'll let you get here to try it,
Would you
okay?
please call the roll?
Alderwoman Howard,
No.
Alderman Ornwitz,
No.
Alderwoman Green,
Aye.
Alderman Todd,
Aye.
Chairwoman Tyus.
Aye.
3 aye votes and 2 no votes.
By a vote, you sustain the motion.
Thank you very much.
All right. Do you
Okay.
want to adjourn or you want me to adjourn?
You can go on adjourn.
Okay.
You're running,
I'll
I'm good.
entertain a motion to adjourn the Engrossment Rules, Resolutions, and Credentials Committee.
So moved.
All
Second.
in favor?
Second.
Okay, we're adjourned.
Aye.